Hello, everyone. We are going to be starting up at chapter 6, where we left off last night. If you want, you can go back and watch my live replay to see what all you missed. Alright. Let me see where I want to end this live today. So I'm on chapter 6. I think I'll end it at either part 3, which is chapter 15. There we go. Chapter 6, Retribution. History had never been Rowan's best subject, but that changed during his apprenticeship. Until then, he could not connect anything in his life, or even in his possible future, that could be affected by a distant past, especially the strange events of the mortal past. But in his apprenticeship, historical studies focused on the concepts of duty, honor, and integrity throughout history. The philosophy and psychology of humankind's finest moments from its birth until the present day. That Rowan found fascinating. History was full of people who sacrificed themselves for the greater good. In a sense, Scythes were that way, surrendering their own hopes and dreams to become servants to society. Or at least the Scythes who respected what the Scythedom stood for were that way. Rowan would have been that kind of Scythe, even after his brutal, scarring apprenticeship to Scythe Goddard. He would have remained noble, but he was denied the chance. Then he had come to realize that he could still serve the Scythedom and humanity, but in a different way. Someone no. Sorry. My cat. No. You're so nosy. Go to sleep. Hi, buddy. Oh, you're feeling like chalk on your nose. Finley, go play. I really, really love you too. I love my baby. Rowan would have been that kind of Scythe, even after his brutal, scarring apprenticeship to Scythe Goddard. He would have remained noble, but he was denied the chance. Then he had come to realize that he could still serve the Scythedom and humanity, but in a different way. His tally was now a solid baker's dozen. He had ended the lives of 13 Scythes across multiple regions, all of whom were an embarrassment to what the Scythedom stood for. He searched his subjects extensively, just as Scythe Faraday had taught him to do, and chose without bias. This was important, because his leaning would have been to look only at the corruptions of the New Order Scythes. They were the ones who openly embraced their excesses and the joy they took in killing. New Order Scythes flaunted the abuse of their power, as if it were a good thing, normalizing bad behavior. But they did not have a monopoly on bad behavior. There were some old guard Scythes, and those who were unaligned, who had become self-serving hypocrites, speaking of high-mindedness, yet hiding their dark deeds in the shadows. Scythe Brahms was the first of his targets to whom Rowan had given a warning. He had been feeling magnanimous that day. It had actually felt good not to end the man. That reminded him that he was not like Goddard and his followers, which made him worthy of facing Citra without shame. While others prepared for the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, Rowan researched several possible targets, spying on them, and taking an accounting of their actions. Scythe Gary was big on secret meetings, but they were usually about dinner parties and sport bets. Scythe Hendricks bragged about questionable deeds, but it was all talk. In reality, he was meek about his gleanings, and did it with appropriate compassion. Scythe Ride's gleanings appeared brutal and bloody, but her subjects always died quickly without suffering. Scythe Renoir, however, was a distinct possibility. When Rowan arrived at his apartment that afternoon, he knew there was someone inside even before he opened the door, because the doorknob was cold. He had rigged a cooling chip into the door that would be triggered when the knob was turned clockwise, as doorknobs generally turn. It was not cold enough to generate frost, but cool enough for him to know that someone had been there and probably still was. He considered running, but Rowan was never one to run from a confrontation. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a knife. He had always had a weapon with him, even when he wasn't wearing a black robe, because he never knew when he'd have to defend himself against agents of the Scythedom. Cautiously, he went inside. His intruder was not hiding. Instead, he sat in plain sight at the kitchen table eating a sandwich. "Hey, Rowan," said Tiger Salazar. "What the? How did he find him?" What the fuck? Sorry, my throat's kind of raspy from last night. I read for like 4.5 hours straight. "Hey, Rowan," said Tiger Salazar. "Hope you don't mind, but I got hungry while I was waiting for you." Rowan closed the door and put his blade away before Tiger could see it. "What the hell are you doing here, Tiger? How did you even find me?" "Hey, give me some credit. I'm not entirely stupid. Don't forget I was the one who knew the guy who gave you your fake ID. I just had to ask the Thunderhead where I could find Ronald Daniels." Of course, there was tons of Ronald Daniels out there, so it took a while to find the right one. On the days before Rowan's apprenticeship, Tiger Salazar had been his best friend. But such designations meant little after one spent a year learning how to kill. Rowan imagined it must be what mortal-age soldiers felt when they returned from war. Old friendships seemed trapped behind a clouded curtain of experiences that old friends didn't share. The only thing he and Tiger had in common was a history that was getting more and more distant. Alright, hold on. Just play for a bit, Finley. Go play. I'll be in there in a minute. I just wish you would have given me a heads up that you were coming, Rowan said. Were you followed? Which you realized ranked pretty high on the list of stupid questions. Not even Tiger would have been clueless enough to come up to Rowan's apartment if he knew he was being followed. Calm down, Tiger said. Nobody knows I'm here. Why do you always think the world is out to get you? I mean, why would they cite them be after you just because you flunked out of your apprenticeship? Because you killed some prominent scythes. Finley, Simba wants in. Rowan didn't answer him. Instead, he went over to the closet door, which was slightly ajar, and closed it, hoping that Tiger hadn't looked inside to see the black robe of Scythe Lucifer. Not that he would understand what he was seeing. The general public didn't know about Scythe Lucifer. The Scythedom was very good at keeping his actions out of the news. Finley, let the cat in. The less Tiger knew, the better. So Rowan invoked the age-old ender of all such conversations. If you're really my friend, you won't ask questions. Yeah, big mystery, man. He held out the remaining bit of his sandwich. Well, at least you still eat human food. What do you want, Tiger? Why are you here? Is that any way to talk to a real friend? I come all this way. At least you could ask me how I've been. God, you're so annoying. You ain't even a real friend. Hi, baby. Yeah. Simba, oops. Leave it alone. No. Not for kitties. There you go. You're so nosy. Ow! Kisses. Kisses. High five. Nux. Ow! Nux. E.T. Oops. Oops. Boop. Boop, 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 boop. Kisses. 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 You're so mean. Ow. No, he's right there. Little me. Me. High five. Next. Ow! It was not mean for you to bite me. E.T. High five. Ow, beast. You little beast. So, how have you been? Pretty good, actually. I just got a new job in a different region, so I came here to say goodbye. You mean some sort of permanent party job? Not sure, but it pays much better than the party agency I was working for, and I finally get to see the world a little bit. The job's in Texas. Texas? Rowan got a little worried. Tiger, they do things differently there. Everybody says, don't mess with Texas. Why do you want to mess with it? So, it's a charter region. Big deal. Just because charter regions are unpredictable doesn't mean they're bad. You know me. My middle name is Unpredictable. Ron had to stifle a laugh. Tiger was one of the most predictable people he knew. The way he became a splatting junkie, the way he ran off to be a professional partier. Tiger might have thought of himself as a free spirit, but he wasn't at all. He just defined the dimensions of his own cage. Well, just be careful, Rowan said, knowing that Tiger wouldn't be, but also knowing that he'd land on his feet, whatever he did. Was I ever as carefree as Tiger? Rowan wondered. No, he wasn't, but he did envy that about Tiger. Maybe that's why they were friends. The moment he became a little awkward, but there was more to it than that. Tiger stood, but didn't make any move to leave. There was something else he had to say. I have some news, he said. It's actually the real reason why I'm here. What kind of news? I knew they would be going after his family to try and lure him back. Still, Tiger hesitated. Rowan braced, knowing it was going to be bad. I'm sorry to tell you this, Rowan, but your dad was gleaned. Rowan felt the earth shift slightly beneath him. Gravity seemed to pull him in an unexpected direction. It wasn't enough to make him lose his balance, but it left him queasy. Rowan, did you hear what I said? I heard you, Rowan said softly. So many thoughts and feelings shot through him, short-circuiting one another until he didn't know what to think or feel. He never expected to see either of his parents again, but to know that he couldn't see his father, to know that he was gone forever, not just deadish, but dead. He had seen many people gleaned. He had ended 13 people himself, but never had Rowan lost someone so close to him. I can't come to the funeral, Rowan realized. The sanctum will have agents. They're looking for me. If there were any way I didn't see them. If there were any, I didn't see them, Tiger said. The funeral was last week. Oh, brother. That just hit as hard as the news. Tiger offered him an apologetic shrug. Like I said, there were tons of Ronald Danielses. It took me a while to find you. So his father had been dead for more than a week, and if Tiger hadn't come to tell him, he never would have known. Which probably would have been better. Then, the truth slowly dawned on Rowan. This was no random event. This was punishment. This was retribution for the acts of Scythe Lucifer. Who was the Scythe who gleaned him? Rowan asked. I have to know who did it. Don't know. He swore the rest of your family to silence. Scythes do that sometimes. You know better than anyone. Both. Bet he gave the others immunity? Of course, Tiger said. Your mother, brothers, and sisters, just like Scythes are supposed to. Rowan paced away, feeling like he wanted to hit Tiger for how completely oblivious he was, but knowing that none of this was Tiger's fault. He was just a messenger. The rest of his family had immunity, but that would only last for a year. Whoever gleaned his father would pick up his mother, then each of his siblings, one a year, until his entire family was gone. This was the price of being Scythe Lucifer. It's my fault. They did this because of me. Rowan, are you even listening to yourself? Not everything is about you. Actually, it is this time. Whatever you did to piss off the Scythedom, they're not going to come after your family because of it. Scythes aren't like that. They don't hold grudges. They're enlightened. You'd be surprised. Go to your room. Yeah, baby, I'm alright. What point was there in arguing this? Tiger would never understand and probably never should. He could live for thousands of years as a happy party boy without ever having to know how petty, how vindictive, how human Scythe could be. Rowan knew he couldn't stay here. Even if Tiger hadn't been followed, the Scythedom would eventually track where Tiger had been. For all Rowan knew, there was a team on its way to take Rowan down. He and Tiger said their goodbyes, and Rowan got his old friend out the door as quickly as he could. Then a moment after Tiger was gone, Rowan left as well, taking nothing but a backpack stuffed with weapons and his black robe. It is important to understand that my perpetual observation of humanity is not surveillance. Surveillance implies motive, suspicion, and ultimately judgment. None of these things are part of my observational algorithms. I observe for one reason and one reason only, to be of the greatest possible service to each individual in my care. I cannot act on anything I see in private settings. Instead, I use the things I see to better understand people's needs. Still, I am not insensitive to the ambivalence people can have at my constant presence in their lives. For this reason, I've shut down all cameras in private homes in the Charter region of Texas. Like all the things I do in Charter regions, it is an experiment. I want to see if a lack of observation hampers my ability to rule. If it does not, I see no reason why I could not turn off a vast majority of my cameras in private homes around the world. However, problems arise from not seeing all that I am capable of seeing. It would prove the need to eradicate every single blind spot on Earth. I hope for the former, but suspect the latter. The Thunderhead. Yo, yo, yo. Yeah. Fuzzy ass caterpillar up there. Chapter 7. Scrawny with potential. Tiger Salazar was going places. After a life life of wasting time and taking up space. He was not professionally paid to waste time and take up space. He couldn't imagine a better life for himself, and with all the brushing of shoulders with sighs, he knew that eventually one of them would take notice of him. He figured that he might have a ring held out to him and get a year of immunity. He never expected one of them would hire Tiger for a permanent position, much less a scythe from another region. "You've entertained us at a party last year," the woman on the phone had said. "We liked your style." She offered him more than twice the money he was making, gave him an address and a date and time to be there. When he got off the train, he immediately knew he wasn't in America anymore. In the Texas region, the official language was Mortal English, spoken with a sort of musical accent. Southern twang. You mean? Just saying. That's what you mean. Southern twang. Anyway. It was close enough to common that Tiger could understand it, but working so hard exhausted his brain. It was like listening to Shakespeare. Everybody dressed a little different and walked with a very close swagger that he could get used to. He wondered how long he'd get to be here. Long enough, and he'd be able to buy himself that car his parents never would, so he wouldn't have to take public cars everywhere. The meeting was in a city called San Antonio, and the address turned out to be the penthouse suite of a high-rise overlooking a little river. He assumed a party might be going on, a perpetual one, that couldn't have been further from the truth. He was greeted at the door not by a servant, but a scythe. A woman with dark hair and a slight Pan-Asian leaning who looked familiar. "Tiger Salazar, I presume?" "You presume right," he stepped in. The decor was ornate, which he expected. What he didn't expect was the complete absence of other guests. But, as he once told Rowan, he went where the day took him. He could roll with whatever got thrown his way. He thought she might offer him food or maybe a drink after his long voyage, but she didn't. Instead, she looked him over like one might look over livestock at an auction. "I like your robe," he told her, figuring flattery couldn't hurt. "Thank you." "Take off your shirt, please." Tiger sighed, so it wasn't going to be that kind of encounter. Tiger sighed. So, it was going to be that kind of encounter. Again, he couldn't have been more wrong. Once his shirt was off, she studied him even more closely. She had him flex his biceps and checked how solid they were. "Scrawny," she said, "but there is potential." "What do you mean, scrawny? I worked out." "Not enough," she told him, "but that's an easy fix." Then she backed away, assessed him for a moment more, and said, "Physically, you wouldn't be anyone's first choice, but under the circumstances, you're absolutely perfect." Tiger expected more, but she offered nothing else. "Absolutely perfect for what?" "You'll know when it's time for you to know." And then finally it clicked, and excitement swept through him. "You're choosing me to be an apprentice?" For the first time she grinned. "Yes, you can say that," she said. "Oh man, This is the best news ever. You won't be disappointed. I'm a quick learner and I'm smart. I mean, not school smart, but don't let that fool you. I've got brains up the wazoo. Oh, that got dark fast. She took a step closer and smiled. The emeralds on her bright green robe caught the light and emeralds. Uh-oh. Trust me, said Scythran. How is she alive? For this apprenticeship, your brains aren't going to matter at all. Part 2. Harm's Way. Before I assumed stewardship of the world, Earth had a maximum sustainability of 10 billion. After that, saturation would have set in, leading to starvation, suffering, and complete collapse of society. I changed that harsh reality. It is amazing how much human life, a well-managed ecosystem can sustain, and by well-managed, I mean managed by me. Humanity itself is simply incapable of juggling the variables, but under my stewardship, even though the human population has multiplied exponentially, the world feels less crowded, far less crowded, and thanks to the various reef, canopy, and subterranean territories I've helped to create, open spaces are even more plentiful than in the mortal age. Without my continuous intervention, this delicate balance would collapse under its own gravity. I shudder to think of the suffering such a planetary implosion would cause. Thank goodness I am here to prevent it. The Thunderhead. Chapter 8. Under no circumstances. Damn, there's a lot of characters being introduced in this one. Grayson Tulliver loved the Thunderhead. Most people did. For how could they not? It held no guile, no malice, no agenda, and always knew exactly what to say. It existed simultaneously everywhere on every computer in the world. It was in everyone's home, a caring, invisible hand on one's shoulder. Even though it could speak to more than 1 billion people simultaneously without taxing its consciousness, it gave each person the illusion that it was giving him or her its undivided attention. The Thunderhead was Grayson's closest friend, mainly because it had raised him. His parents were serial parents. They loved the idea of having families, but loathed raising them. Grayson and his sisters were his father's 5th family and his mother's 3rd. They got tired of this new batch of offspring quickly, and when they began to shirk their parental responsibilities, the Thunderhead took up the slack. What, Finn? What do you need, buddy? Go play. It helped Grayson with his homework and advised him on how to behave and what to wear on his first date. And although it could not exhibit a physical presence at his high school graduation, his usual comforting self. The Thunderhead, however, always meant what it said. Grayson was not influenced or coerced into a life of service to the Thunderhead. It was his choice to work for the authority interface as a Nimbus agent. Had been in his heart for years. He never told the Thunderhead for fear that it might not want him to try to talk him out of it. Fear it might not want him or try to talk him out of it. When he finally submitted his application for the Mid-American Nimbus Academy, the Thunderhead simply said, "It pleases me," and put him in touch with other like-minded teens in and around his neighborhood. His apprentice with those kids was not what he expected. He found them remarkably boring. "Is that how people see me?" he asked the Thunderhead. "Am I as dull as they are?" "I don't believe you are," the Thunderhead told him. "Finley, be careful." See, many come for work for the authority interface because they lack the creativity to find truly stimulating profession. Others feel powerless and have the need to experience power vicariously. The other are lackluster ones, the boring ones, who ultimately become the least effective Nimbus agents. Rare are those such as yourself whose longing to serve is a mark of character. The Thunderhead was right. Grayson did not want to serve and wanted to do so with no ulterior I can't ever say that word. Ulterior motive. Four years of study, followed by a year out in the field as a journeyman agent. Grayson was prepared to devote his 5 years of preparation, but barely 2 months into his studies at the Mid-American Nimbus Academy, he found that his path was barred. His schedule, which consisted of classes in history, philosophy, digital theory, and law, suddenly appeared blank, for reasons unknown. He had been dropped from all his classes. What the fuck? 'Was this a mistake? How could it be? The Thunderhead did not make mistakes. Perhaps he reasoned class schedules were left to human hands and were subject to human error. So he went to the school's registrar, hoping to get to the bottom of it. "Nope," said the registrar, with neither surprise nor compassion. "No error. It says you're not enrolled in any classes. There's a message in your file, though." The message was simple and unambiguous. Grayson Tolliver was to report to the local authority interface headquarters immediately. "What for?" he asked. But the registrar had nothing for him but a shrug and a glance over Grayson's shoulder to the next person in line. Oh, that's odd. Although the Thunderhead itself did not require a place of business, its human counterparts did. In every city and every region, there was an office of the authority interface where thousands of Nimbus agents worked to maintain the world and did the job well. The Thunderhead had managed to achieve something unique in the history of humanity, a bureaucracy that actually worked. The offices of the authority interface, or AI as it was commonly called, were not ornate, nor were they conspicuously austere. Every city had a building that harmonized with its architectural surroundings. In fact, one could often pick out the local AI headquarters by simply looking for the building that appeared to most belong. In Fulcrum City, the capital of Mid-America, it was a solid building of white granite and dark blue glass. At 67 stories, it hit the average height for the downtown area. Once the Mid-American Nimbus agents attempted to convince the Thunderhead to build a taller tower that might impress the population and even the world. "I do not need to impress," the Thunderhead had responded to the disappointed Nimbus agents. And if you feel the need for the authority interface to stand out in the world, perhaps you need to reevaluate your priorities. Suitably chastised, the Mid-American Nimbus agents returned to work with their proverbial tails between their legs. The Thunderhead was power without hubris. Even in their disappointment, the Nimbus agents were heartened by its incorruptible nature. Grayson felt out the place when he pushed his way through the revolving door into the polished marble vestibule, light gray marble, the same color as all the suits around him. He had no suit to wear. The closest he could come was a mildly wrinkled pair of slacks, a white shirt, and a green tie that was a bit lopsided, no matter how many times he tried to adjust it. The Thunderhead had given him that tie as a gift a few months before. He wondered if it knew, even then, that he would be called in for this meeting. A junior agent who had been waiting for him greeted him at reception. She was pleasant and perky and shook his hand a little too vigorously. "I've just begun my year of field work," she said. "I have to say, I've never heard of a freshman called into headquarters." She wouldn't stop shaking his hand as she spoke. It began to feel awkward, and he wondered which would be worse, allowing her to continue pumping his hand up and down or withdrawing it from her grasp. Finally, Grayson rescued his hand from her grip, feigning a need to scratch his nose. "Either you've done something very good or very bad," she said. "I haven't done anything," he told her, but clearly she didn't believe him. She led him to a comfortable salon with two tall-backed leather chairs, a bookshelf of classic volumes, and generic knickknacks, and in the middle, a coffee table with a silver platter of tea cakes and a matching pitcher of ice water. It was a standard audience room, designed for the times that a human touch was needed when relating to the Thunderhead. It troubled Grayson because he always spoke to the Thunderhead directly. He couldn't begin to guess what this was all about. A few minutes later, a slim Nimbus agent, who already seemed tired, even though the day had barely begun, came in and introduced himself as Agent Traxler. This man was of that first category that the Thunderhead had spoken of, the uninspired. He sat across from Grayson and made obligatory small talk. "I trust you find your way here easily, blah, blah, blah. Have a tea cake, they're very good, blah, blah, blah." Grayson was sure the man said the same exact things to everyone he had an audience with. Finally, he got down to business. "Do you have any idea why you were called here?" he asked. "No," Grayson told him. "Yes, I suppose you wouldn't." Then why even ask, Grayson thought, but didn't dare say it aloud. "You were called here because the Thunderhead wished for me to remind you of the rules of our agency with regards to the Scythehood." Grayson was insulted and didn't even try to hide it. "I know the rules." "Yes, but the Thunderhead wished for me to remind you." "Why didn't the Thunderhead remind me itself?" That is a good question. Agent Traxler released an exasperated sigh, one that he probably practiced often. "As I said, the Thunderhead wished for me to remind you." "This is going nowhere." "All right, then," said Grayson, realizing his own frustration had slipped over the line into disrespect. He backpedaled. "I appreciate the fact that you've taken a personal interest in this, Agent Traxler. You can consider me fully reminded." He reached for his tablet. "Shall we go over the rules?" Grayson took in a slow breath and held it, because he imagined if he didn't, it might come out as a scream. What was the Thunderhead thinking? When he got back to his dorm room, he'd have to have a nice long conversation with it. It was not above arguing with the Thunderhead. In fact, they argued regularly. Of course, the Thunderhead always won, and even when it lost, because Grayson knew it lost those arguments on purpose. Clause 1 of the Separation of Scythe and State, Traxler began and continued reading for the better part of an hour, occasionally checking in with Grayson with, "Are you still with me? And did you get that?" Grayson would either nod and say yes, or when he felt it was called for, repeat back word for word what Traxler had said. When Traxler was finally done, rather than putting down his tablet, he pulled up 2 images. "Now, for a quiz." He showed the images to Grayson. The first he recognized immediately as Seth Curie, her long silver hair and lavender robe, a giveaway. The second was a girl his age. Her turquoise robe testified to her being a Seth as well. Oh, this is the loophole. The kind of threat from which there would be no possibility of revival. Excuse me. If the Thunderhead or one of these agents warned them, which clause of the separation of Scythe and State would be violated? Clause 15, paragraph 2. Actually, clause 15, paragraph 3, but close enough. He put down the tablet. What are the consequences for a Nimbus Academy student warning the two sides of this threat? Grayson said nothing for a moment. The thought of the consequences was enough to chill his blood. Expulsion from the academy. Permanent expulsion, Traxler said. The student may never apply to that Nimbus Academy or any other ever again. Grayson glanced down at the little green tea cakes. He was glad he hadn't eaten any because he might just have hurled them back into the Agent Traxler's face. Then again, he might have felt much better if he had. He imagined Agent Traxler's pinched face dripping with puke. It was almost enough to make him smile. Almost. Then, we are clear that you are under no circumstances to warn Anastasia and Seth Curie of the threat. Grayson heaved a false shrug. How could I warn them? I don't even know where they live. They live in a rather famous landmark residence called the Falling Water, the address of which is very easy to find, Agent Traxler told him, then said, as if Grayson hadn't heard him the first time, if you warn them of the threat, which now you know about, you will face the consequences we discussed. Then Agent Traxler promptly left to prepare for an It was dark by the time Grayson got back. Almost as enthusiastic as a hand-shaking junior Nimbus agent, wouldn't shut up. Grayson just wanted to slap him. My ethics teacher just assigned us an analysis of mortal age court cases. I got something called Brown versus the Board of Education, whatever that is, and my digital theory teacher wants me to write a paper on Bill Gates. Not the scythe, but the actual guy. And don't even ask me about philosophy. Grayson let him drone on, but stopped listening. Instead, he ran everything that happened at the AI through his mind one more time, as if reevaluating it might somehow change it. He knew what was expected of him. The Thunderhead could not break the law, but he could. Of course, as Agent Traxler had pointed out, there would be severe consequences if he did. He cursed his own conscience because, being the person that he was, how could he not warn Scythe, Anastasia, and Curie, no matter what the consequences? Did you get any assignments today? His blabbermouth roommate asked. No, Grayson told him flatly. I was given the opposite of an assignment. Lucky you. Somehow, Grissom didn't feel all that lucky. I rely on the bureaucracy of the authority interface to handle the governmental aspects of my relationship with humankind. Nimbus agents, as they are called, provide an easy-to-understand physical form to my governance. I don't have to do this. I could handle it all myself if I wanted to. It is fully within my power to create a robotic body for myself, or a team of robotic bodies that could hold my consciousness. However, long ago I determined that would not be a good idea. It's troubling enough that people imagine me as a storm cloud. If people pictured me in some sort of physical form, it would distort their perception of me, and I might enjoy it too much. For my relationship with humanity to remain pure, I must remain pure. Mind only. Sentient software with no flesh, no physical form. I do have camera bots that roam the world to augment my stationary cameras, but I am not present in any of them. They are nothing more than rudimentary sensory organs. The irony, however, is that with no body, the world itself becomes my body. One might think this would make me feel grand, but it doesn't. If my body is the earth, then I am nothing more than a speck of dust in the vastness of space. I wonder what it would be like then if my consciousness were to someday span the distance between the stars. The Thunderhead. Chapter 9. The First Casualty. The Terranova family always had a four-breasted turkey for Thanksgiving because everyone in the family preferred white meat. The four-breasted turkey had no legs, so not only couldn't their Thanksgiving turkeys fly when they were alive, they couldn't walk either. As a child, Citra always felt bad for them, even though the Thunderhead took great pains to make such birds. Sure, such birds and all livestock were raised humanely. Citra had seen a video on it in 3rd grade. The turkeys, from the moment of their hatching, were suspended in a warm gel, and their small brains were wet-wired into a computer that produced for them an artificial reality in which they experienced flight, freedom, reproduction, and all things that would make a turkey content. Citra had found it both funny and terribly sad at the same time. She had asked the Thunderhead about it, for in those days before being chosen for the Storm, she could talk to the Thunderhead freely. I have flown with them over the green expanses of temperate forest, and can testify to you that the lives they experience are deeply satisfying, the Thunderhead had told her. But yes, it is sad to live and die without knowing the truth of one's existence. Only sad to us, however, not to them. Well, whether or not this year's Thanksgiving turkey had lived a fulfilling virtual life, at least its demise was purposeful. Citra arrived wearing her scythe robe. She had been home several times since becoming a scythe, but coming home was one of the few times she felt that she needed to be Citra Terranova. So before today, she came in her street clothes. She knew it was a childish thing to do, but in the bosom of her family, didn't she still have the right to play the child? Maybe. But it had to stop sooner or later. Now was as good a time as ever. Her mother almost gasped when she answered the door, but embraced Citra anyway. Citra was stiff about the hug for a moment, until she remembered that there were no weapons in the robe's many secret pockets. It made the robe feel unusually light. It's lovely, she told Citra. I'm not sure if she was supposed to call a scythe robe lovely. Her father, an enthusiast of classic sports, watched an archival video of a Mortal Age football game, where it looked much like the same as the sport did now, but somehow seemed more exciting. He paused the game to give her his undivided attention. How is it living with Scythe Curie? Is she treating you well? Yes, very well. We've become good friends. You sleeping okay? What the fuck? Play for a little bit. You don't need to watch TV all the time. Yes, very well. We've become good friends. You sleeping okay? Sister thought that an odd question until she realized what he was really asking. I've gotten used to my day job, she told him. I sleep fine at night. Which wasn't entirely true, but the truth about such things wouldn't do anyone any good. She made small talk with her father until they couldn't find anything more to talk about, which was all of 5 minutes. There were only 4 of them for Thanksgiving dinner this year, although the Terranova had hordes of extended family on both sides and many friends. Sister requested that they neither accept nor extend invitations this year. It will create a lot of drama if no one is invited, her mother had pointed out. Fine, then invite them, Sister said, but tell them that Scythes are obliged to glean one of the guests at Thanksgiving. Is that true? Of course not. I know that. Go play, please. I said, please go play. Please. Finley McGuire. Go play, please. I'm about to go make you lunch. She made small talk with her father until they couldn't find blah, blah, blah. It would create a lot of drama if no one isn't blah, blah, blah. Is that true? Of course not, but they don't even know that. Scythe Curie had warned Citra of what she called holiday opportunism. Relatives and family friends would swarm Citra like bees, seeking for a favor from the young Scythe. You were always my favorite niece, they would say, or we bought this gift just for you. Everyone in your life will expect to be granted immunity from my gleaning, Scythe Curie had warned her, and that expectation will quickly turn into resentment when they don't receive it. Not just resentment of you, but of your parents and brother, because they now have immunity for as long as you live. Citra decided it would be best to avoid all those people. She went into the kitchen to help her mother prepare the meal. Since she was a food synthesis engineer, several of the side dishes were beta prototypes of new foodstuffs. Her mother, by force of habit, told Citra to be careful when she chopped onions. I think I know my way around a knife, Citra told her, and then regretted it, because her mother became quiet, so she tried to imply a different meaning. I mean that Scythe Curie, and I always prepare a meal for the family of her gleaning subjects. I've become a pretty good sous chef. Apparently saying that was even worse. Well, isn't that nice? Her mother said in a cold sort of way that made it clear she found nothing nice about it. But it wasn't just her general distaste for Scythe Curie, it was jealousy. Scythe Curie had replaced Jenny Terranova in Citra's life, and they both knew it. The meal was served. Her father carved, and although Citra knew she could do a much better job of carving, she didn't offer. Bruh. There was way too much to eat. The table was a promise of leftovers that would last until turkey became a dirty word. Citra had always been a quick eater, but Scythe Curie insisted to slow down and savor. She slowed down and savored her sense of taste. So now, with Scythe and nostalgia, she ate slowly. She wondered if her parents noticed these little differences in her. Citra thought the meal would go without incident, but halfway through, her mother decided to create one. "I hear that boy you apprenticed with has gone missing," her mother said. Citra took a healthy spoonful of something purple that tasted like mashed potatoes genetically merged with dragon fruit. She hated the way her parents, from the very beginning, referred to as Rowan as that boy. "I hear he went crazy or something," Ben said with a mouthful of potato food. "And since he was almost a Scythe, the Thunderhead wasn't allowed to follow him." "Ben," their father said, "let's not talk about this at dinner." Although he kept his eyes on Ben, Citra knew it was really directed at her mother. "Well, I'm glad you're not associated with him anymore," her mother said, and when Citra did not respond, her mother simply had to push it even further. "I know the two of you were close during your apprenticeship." "We weren't close," Sister insisted. "We weren't anything." And that hurt to admit more than her parents could possibly know. How could she and Rowan have any kind of relationship when they were forced to be lethal adversaries? Even now, when he was hunted and she was yoked with the heavy responsibility of Scythehood, how could there be anything between them but a dark well of longing? "Finley, quit messing with the door." "Yes, I am perfectly fine, but I need you to quit messing with your door." "Mm-hmm." Because I didn't get really good sleep last night. "I love you." "No, I love you." "No, I love you more." "No, I love you so much." "I love you so much, 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 much more." "I love you so much, 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 much more." You win. "If you know what's good for you, sister, you'll distance yourself from that boy," her mother said, "just to get you up a new home, or you'll come to regret it." Then her father sighed and gave up trying to change the subject. "Your mother's right, honey. They chose you over him for a reason." Sister let her knife fall to the table, not because she feared she might use it, but because Scythe Curie had taught her to never hold a weapon when angry, even if that weapon was a dinner knife. She tried to choose her words carefully, but maybe she wasn't careful enough. "I am a Scythe," she said with still severity. "I might be your daughter, but you should show me the respect that my position deserves." But Ben's eyes looked as wounded as they had on the night she was forced to put a knife through his heart. "So do we all have to call you Scythe Anastasia now?" he asked her. "Of course not," she told him. "No, just your honor," snapped her mother. Bitch, please. She jealous. That's when something that Scythe Faraday once said came back to her. Family is the first casualty of Scythehood. There was no further conversation for the rest of the meal, and as soon as the plates were cleared and in the dishwasher, Citra said, I should probably go now. Her parents didn't try to convince her to stay. This had become as awkward for them as it was for her. Her mother was no longer bitter about things. Now, she just seemed resigned. There were tears in her eyes that she quickly hid by hugging Citrus tightly, so Citra couldn't see them, but she had. Come back soon, honey, her mother said. This is still your home. But it wasn't anymore, and they all knew it. I'm going to learn how to drive, no matter how many times it kills me. Only a day after Thanksgiving, Anastasia, and today she was Anastasia, was more determined than ever to be at the wheel of her own destiny. The uneasy meal with her family reminded her that she needed to create distance between who she had once been and who she was now. The schoolgirl who rode around in public cars had to be left behind if she were ever to fulfill the shoes in which she now stood. You will drive us to today's gleanings, Marie told her. I can do that, she told Scythe Curie, although she didn't feel as confident as she sounded. On their last lesson, Citra had to run them into a ditch. It's mostly country roads, Marie told her as they went out to their car, so it will test your skills without putting too many in harm's way. We are Scythes, Citra pointed out. We are harm's way. Oh well. The small town on today's agenda hadn't been seen and gleaning in over a year. Today it would see two. Scythe Curie's would be swift, and Scythe Anastasia's would come with a month's delay. They had found a rhythm to their joint gleaning excursions that suited them both. They pulled out from Falling Water's carport haltingly, as Citra still had trouble with the Porsche's manual transmission. The concept of a clutch felt to Citra like some sort of medieval punishment. What's the point of 3-foot pedals? Citra complained. People only have 2 feet. Think of it as a piano, Anastasia. I hate the piano. The banter made it a little easier on Citra, and her driving became smoother when she could complain. She was only on the upswing of her learning curve, so things would have turned out very differently had Scythe Curie been driving. They were barely a quarter-mile down Falling Water's winding private road when a figure leaped out at them from the woods. It's a splatter, shouted Scythe Curie. It had become all the new rage for thrill-seeking teens to do impersonations of windshielding bugs. Not an easy challenge, because it was very hard to catch a car on the grid by surprise, and those who were off-grid were usually seasoned drivers. Had Scythe Curie been at the wheel, she would have handedly swerved around the would-be splatter and continued on without a second thought, but Citra had none of the requisite reflexes. Instead, Citra found her hands frozen on the wheel, and although she tried to punch the brake, she managed to hit the loathsome clutch instead. They barreled right into the splatter, who bounced on the hood, spider-webbed their windshield, and flipped over the roof of the car. He had already landed behind them by the time Citra found the brake, and they squealed to a halt. Crap! Scythe Curie took a deep breath and released it. That, Anastasia, would definitely have caused you to fail a mortal age driving test. That is such a morbid joke.
I'll get my baby first.
Okay. Oh my god. Yeah, the kitty cat.
You're very kitty.
Jesus. I love my kid. They got out of the car, and while Scythe Curie inspected the damage to her Porsche, Citra stormed toward the splatter, determined to give him a piece of her mind. Her first real outing behind the wheel, and some stupid splatter had to ruin it. He was still alive, but barely, and although he appeared to be in agony, Citra knew better. His pain nanites had kicked in the moment he had connected with the car, and road splatters always had their nanites dialed to high, so they could experience maximum damage with minimum discomfort. His healing nanites were already trying to repair the damage, but they only succeeded in prolonging the inevitable. He would be deadish in less than a minute. Are you satisfied? Citra said as he...
That's funny.
You're funny.
Okay.
Boo, he said through his swelling mouth. Boo, said Stitcher. Really? Sorry, but you missed Halloween by a month. Then he grabbed her robe with a bloody hand and pulled her on it with more force than she thought he could have. He made her trip over the hem, and she fell to her knees. Boo, boo, Then his hand let go, and he went limp. His eyes stayed open. But Citra had seen death enough to know that he was gone. Even out here in the forest, an ambidrome would come for him shortly. They hovered over even the most sparsely populated areas. Wait a minute, lamented Scythe Curie when Citra returned to her. He'll be up and walking again long before they can fix the damage to my car, bragging all about how he splatted a pair of scythes. Still, the whole thing weighed on Citra. She didn't know why it should. Perhaps it was his eyes, or maybe the desperation in his voice. It didn't seem the way she thought a road splatter would. It gave her pause enough to consider what she might be missing about the situation. She looked around, and that's when she spotted it. A thin wire stretched across the road, not 10 feet in front of where the car came to a halt. Marie, look at this. Ooh. The two of them approached the wire, which stretched to trees on either side. That's when it came to her that the splatter was trying to say booby trap. They followed the wire to the tree on the left, and sure enough, just behind the tree was a detonator wired enough to an explosive to blow a crater 100 feet wide. Citra felt her breath stolen and had to suck it back in. Finally, go play. If the wire had been tripped, there wouldn't be enough left of either of them to revive. But the day was saved by this mysterious boy and Citra's bad driving. Marie, who do you think... Scythe Curie cut her off before she could finish. I am not partial to uninformed conjecture, and I would appreciate it if you did not waste your time in guessing games either. Then she softened. We'll report this to the Scythedom. Don't give us... Okay, just hold on.